Arsenal Football Club was once the symbol of stability in English football, a club built on tradition, discipline and success. Under Arsene Wenger, Arsenal transformed the game, winning titles, producing iconic players and becoming known across the world for a unique style of football. But by the end of the 2010s, that identity had almost completely disappeared. Not for 15 years without a Premier League title, the standards had dropped. The connection between the club and its supporters began to break. Arsenal wasn't just a team struggling for results, it was a football club that had lost its direction completely. This is the story of how Arsenal fell apart and how the rebuild began. To understand Arsenal's rebuild, we first have to understand the scale of the decline. Because the problems at Arsenal did not appear overnight. They were years in the making. When Arsene Wenger left the club in summer 2018, Arsenal were entering complete uncharted territory for the first time in over 2 decades. Wenger had delivered 3 Premier League titles, 7 FA Cups and created one of the greatest teams that English football has ever seen. But the final years of his reign told a complete different story. Arsenal were no longer competing for the biggest prizes. Sure, we won a couple of FA Cups here and there, that cannot be snuffed at. But the club that once challenged Manchester United's Sir Alex Ferguson was now fighting simply to qualify for the Champions League. And when Wenger departed, Arsenal discovered something even more difficult. Replacing a manager was easy, but replacing an entire footballing philosophy was that much harder. The appointment of Unai Emery was supposed to represent a fresh start, a European coach with Champions League experience, someone who went on to win multiple UEFA Cups and could potentially modernise Arsenal and restore our competitive nature. But the transition exposed deeper issues: recruitment that lacked consistency, a squad unbalanced, defensive mistakes became routine. And despite reaching the Europa League final again in 2019, Arsenal looked like a club without a clear identity. And by the end of that very year, Emery was gone. Arsenal had reached a crossroads. The question was no longer how does Arsenal win trophies again? The question became, what kind of football club does Arsenal want to become? The biggest issue facing Arsenal was not simply the manager, it was the entire footballing operation. For years, Arsenal had been built around Arsene Wenger as its central figure. Wenger was not just the coach, he was the sporting visionary, the recruiting strategist, the football philosophy. He was everything, and when he left, Arsenal needed a new structure. Instead, the club entered a period of uncertainty. Recruitment became one of the biggest criticisms. Arsenal had spent significant sums of money for the first time in a very long time, but the squad became increasingly difficult to balance, with expensive contracts which limited their flexibility in the market. Aging players remained on high wages, north of £200,000 to £300,000 per week. Recruitment decisions often felt disconnected from a long-term plan. And the result was a squad that was caught in between eras. There are still significant remains or remnants of the Wenger generation. Players who had experienced Arsenal's previous standards, but there was still no clear of when that next generation was going to take over. After Unai Emery's departure, we had already identified that the club had lacked leaders. It lacked physicality, and most importantly, the entire club lacked an identity. Arsenal had become reactive, now joining the likes of Chelsea and other managers, Manchester United and Spurs, of changing managers over and over again, changing systems, changing strategies, without a consistent footballing vision. So every rebuild started from zero. When Mikel Arteta arrived in December 2019, he inherited one of the biggest rebuilding jobs in modern Arsenal history. Arsenal were not just simply underperforming, they were broken. The statistics told the story. Arsenal had fallen from regular Champions League contenders to a team that was, for some parts of the season, struggling to even reach the top half. They had defensive problems, they had inconsistent performances, and they had completely lost belief. In Arteta's first weeks, the scale of the challenge became clear. This was not about making small adjustments, this was about changing the culture of the football club from the inside out. Arteta had never managed a senior team before. many questioned whether Arsenal had made the right decision, hiring someone who, in their mind, had zero experience with fans and the rest alike. But what they saw in him, what the leaders at Arsenal saw in him, was something they believed the club desperately needed: a clear footballing philosophy, a commitment to standards, and a long-term vision. And never forget the non-negotiables that Arteta spoke about in his first interviews. His first few months, however, were very chaotic. The pandemic interrupted football, results were inconsistent, but something important happened. Arsenal won the FA Cup in May of 2020, but it was not the beginning of a finished rebuild, but it was a glimpse of something that Arsenal had been missing, and that was belief. The FA Cup victory gave Arsenal something they desperately needed, and that was time. Time with fans, to keep fans happy that they brought something home, and to show them that we are building something from here. But Arteta knew that success would not come from one trophy. It would come from changing something underneath, and that first step was its culture. Arteta introduced a new standard around the club: training intensity, behaviour, personal accountability. Players were judged not only on ability, but on whether they represented the future that Arsenal wanted to build. Now, some decisions were unpopular. Experienced players moved on, big contracts were removed. Remember the Ozil and Aubameyang situation? The club was rebuilt around younger players who could actually grow together and build that camaraderie with each other. The process was incredibly painful. Arsenal finished 8th in consecutive seasons, and the criticism increased, and many even questioned whether Arteta would survive or if he was even the right person for the job anymore. But beneath the results, something was changing. Young players were emerging, the team had become more disciplined, and Arsenal began developing a recognisable style of play. The club was no longer trying to return to the past, it was instead trying to create something new for where football was heading that nobody else could see. Arsenal's rebuild was never going to happen overnight. The damage was too deep, the expectations were too high, and the competition at the top of English football had never been stronger. Man City and Liverpool were going head-to-head every season, whilst Arsenal were just waiting to see if they could have an opportunity just to reach the top 4. But for the first time in years, Arsenal had something that they had been missing: direction. Mikel Arteta had not fixed Arsenal yet, but he had started something: a new culture, a new identity, a new generation. And the next challenge would be proving that this foundation could become a team capable of competing with the very best in Europe. This was the beginning of the rebuild, but Arsenal's journey back to the top had only just started.